Hello, Jason Michael Fladlien here. In fact, the CEO of a little company we like to refer to as Rapid Crush Inc. on behalf of all the wonderful staff that we have that make up this family. Believe it or not, over 20 people that are inside of Rapid Crush. It's kind of a machine at this point. And I can't believe that I'm part of the ground floor on that. And I appreciate you being here with us in 6 and 6 to see this amazing milestone of 100 sessions. Incredible, right? 100 sessions. And if you're just joining, say that you started from session 89, 11 sessions ago, and you've stayed with us since session 89, that means you only have technically one more session that you pay for, because you get sessions every other week, and then after 6 months of that, of making your installments of $97 a piece, then any other session that goes beyond the 12 that you paid for is yours for free in the future. And we have people like Jay here who have been here since day one, session one, and he's paid for 12 sessions and he's got 88 more sessions for free, and there's no end in sight. And what Jay just said to me in the chat, he says, I can't even tell you how much this 6 and 6 course meant to me, as it allowed me to listen to things over and over again. And I really absolutely appreciate that. And Brad Reed's here. Welcome, Brad, founding member. Bought 12, got 100. Yeah, baby. All right, well, we got at least 12 more to go after today, but I think we'll get to 200 before it's all said and done. Now, today's training is a little bit weird in a sense, and I feel kind of weird doing it, but I'm pretty sure that you're going to get a lot of value out of this, because I'm going to almost autobiographically walk you through my progression and hit certain milestones in my own career to kind of coincide with the theme of the 100 session of 6 and 6 milestone. And it's not just going to be all about me, and it does feel weird talking about me in the form of an educational experience, so I'm going to attempt to, as much as possible, tie this to lessons that you can apply and use both in your business and in your life. And each time we do insights for a milestone that I'm going to reveal, I would like to get some of your feedback on that, as far as any questions, any clarification, anything that you would like to ask me at this point. And I'm going to be a very open book here today. Today I'm in fact going to, as we change the slide, and hopefully just let me know if that slide changed for you. I want to make sure. Today I'm going to extract personal and professional milestones, and hopefully they'll be helpful to you and your goals. And so let's start with the first money that was ever made online under my capacity when I got started in business. And really, I started on July 24th of 2007, specifically attempting to make some money online at least. And I was writing not as Jason Fladlien, but as a man, a myth, a legend named Kurt Dite. Does somebody please affirm for me that you see this on your screen right now? I want to make sure that the slides are changing. All right, good. Whew. Now here's the interesting thing about Kurt Dite. Kurt Dite has, and that's me, by the way, he has published 46 articles on Easy Articles since July 24th of 2007. Overall, not bad in terms of article views. This wowed me this morning when I took this screenshot. 209,000 plus views over time. And to understand the context, who here was doing article marketing in 2007, or who here was doing marketing online in 2007? If you were, then you would know that Easy Articles was the big article it was the big thing at the time. Everybody was doing it because you could put articles on Easy and get free exposure. And the big concept was to take them from the article and then put a bio box at the end of it that would take them to your website, where you can then hopefully sell them something and make money. Now here's the funny thing about Kurt Dite. Kurt Dite wrote such classics such as this one, How Ugly Men Who Are Less Intelligent Than You Date Beautiful Women. Just, classic after classic article like this one, September 5th of 2007, submitted on this. And now here's the interesting thing about this. I had no desire to ever be a pickup artist myself. Susan, that's funny. And I had no desire ever to really help other people manipulate or try to get all the women that they could ever desire, right? However, I was in this to make some money, and I thought there was an opportunity that I could exploit. And the opportunity came about because my dad and my mom got a divorce, and my dad bought dating stuff to get back in the game. And so at this time in 2007, I'm actually living with my dad, tiny little 2-room apartment, and we have a shared closet because there's only one closet in this apartment. And I stumble across a thing called Advanced Dating Secrets, created by David D'Angelo, aka Evan Pagan, who you might have heard of. And I thought, wow, you know what? This is handed to me on a silver platter. I've heard this thing related to easing articles and article marketing. I'm basically going to use that as source material to pull from, kind of rewrite it in my own words and pick out pieces as kind of fodder to create articles. And then I'll promote Eben once somebody reads my article and then clicks on the bio box at the bottom. So you can see the bio box. Kurt Dite has created a free 5-day mini course on how to seduce almost any woman. It's available for instant access for a limited time and then check out this wonderful URL, dating-secrets2.com. Let's just say I didn't know what the hell I was doing at the time. And what would happen if somebody clicked on that bio box is they would go to a web page, a squeeze page. And in fact, I don't have it anymore, but I did go back to the Wayback Machine. And yes, Jesse, there absolutely will be a replay of this in the members area. And so I don't know what ugly banner graphic I had here, but this was the squeeze page that I was able to build in, I believe it was Dreamweaver. You know, all my time, right? And free 94-page guide reveals, and I think it was a graphical headline there. And then I wrote this squeeze page. I have a 94-page seduction guide I want you to have for free. Now, let me ask you this. If I wrote 24 articles, do you think I then separately wrote 94 pages of this guide, or do you suppose that I just took the same amount of articles that were freely available and then stuck it into a PDF? And that's exactly what I did. I just reused the same articles because, you know, I was trying to be smart and leverage things. And then I put links at the bottom of each article promoting David D'Angelo's Double Your Dating course. Right? And it's kind of funny because let me walk you a little bit further through how this came to be. Now, first of all, is this a good free gift? Is this something that would get somebody excited to exchange their email address for in exchange? No, it's lousy. I'll give you a little bit of insight. If you're wanting to create lead capture mechanisms, people do not want 94 pages for free. Now, people will buy 94 pages because then they will feel like it's worth the effort of consuming 94 pages. But when you're doing hit and run type marketing where you're just trying to extract somebody's email address, they do not want 94 pages. They want a lot less than that, and they want something that's attractive. I mean, what's the main hook here? There is no main hook. There is no single powerful, relevant idea or thread that has been weaved throughout this free ebook, right? And you know, if you go look at the copy now, I think I always had a gift. Maybe, you know, it's weird to say because I always like to think in my mind, or at least try to trick myself in my mind, that supposedly I must have worked and clawed and scratched my way for everything that I got in my life. I think that's what do they call that in sociology and psychology? It's a fundamental attribution error, if you want to be technical about it. But maybe I was always kind of good or had a little bit of a knack for copywriting. But what I did here to write these bullet points was I looked at other copywriters' sales letters that were not in this niche, noticed their patterns, and then kind of retrofitted my own bullet points to match those. This classic, for example, a shocking tactic politicians use to steal votes and how you can use it to make any woman instantly trust you. I mean, just the way those two things don't even make sense together is an example of how I was puzzle piecing this copy together based on other letters that I was observing. And then I would stick it down here for an opt-in form. And here's the interesting thing. Just put your name and email address in the form below to sign up for my free dating newsletter. So what are we offering? Up here it was a 94-page guide. Down here it was a newsletter. Remember how we got them there with the call to action, a 5-part mini course? I've literally promised them 3 separate things. This was the free 5-day mini course with a PDF book and a dating newsletter. I did not know what I was doing. I did not. Would we agree at this time I didn't know what I was doing, but whether I was really smart or really dumb, I don't know. I did realize that let me just start doing stuff and see what happens. Let me start doing stuff and see what happens. And it's funny because I was embarrassed about this for many years afterwards, and I kind of never shared it with anybody because it is kind of embarrassing. But the whole point of this is I would do this, and I would promote Double Your Dating in the email follow-up sequence, and I think I promoted one or two other ClickBank products as well as a pickup kind of thing, and I made some money with it. The way that I realized it was over time, very slowly but surely, I was building up a list of people, and my email marketing was horrible, and all I did was, content, pitch, content, pitch, and just queued up about 45 emails that would follow it. And I surmised in my mind that within a 6-month period of time, I could probably consistently be making $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 a month. But the only problem was right now I was working painting houses for $12 an hour, day in and day out. And I was doing this before I'd go to work, and I'd do this when I'd come home until I fell asleep at night. And I said, I don't want to wait 6 months to make all this money to be able to quit painting. And what really kicked me at the end of the day was this. I got a check from Double Your Dating, their corporation, and they paid me on this thing, and my dad threw the check away one day. I mean, Jesus. And that's when I said, okay, enough's enough. First of all, I had to wait 45 days to get paid, and then once I got paid, my dad threw the damn check away. And I'm sure I could have went and got it again, but I didn't even mess with it. So I literally worked all this time, made money, and then actually never was able to cash it. Now here's some insights into this, and these can be very applicable, I think, to you and your business. First of all, it's really hard to sell something you don't really know about or believe in. I am not very good at picking up women. Never have been, and I never will be. I'm not really even that interested in that kind of stuff either. I just tried to seize and recognize and utilize an opportunity that was in front of me. So I don't think that's a bad thing. I just think that sometimes you got to go with what you got, right? But then over time realize that you hope to transition that into something better. But when you're getting up and running, anything is better than nothing. Experience is more valuable than information. Experience is more valuable than information by a long shot. Information on how to swim to somebody who doesn't know can be helpful, but experience of actually getting in the pool with somebody, or even with yourself in the shallow end, is powerful. Now, information can dictate experience. Information can shape the type of experience you're going to try to go out and acquire, but information is small in terms of value compared to experience. A lot of what we do as sellers and as content providers and as trainers is we try to present the information, ideally, if we know what we're doing, we try to present the information in a way that changes your state, your emotional state, and how you feel, thus compelling you to try to get some sort of experience. So if you're trying to reach an audience, if you're trying to sell an audience, if you're trying to connect with an audience, if you're trying to help an audience, if you're trying to provide value that trumps whatever they pay you to get that value for, always think from a perspective of how can what I tell them and share with them create a certain experience or a desire for a certain experience. That was a very long sentence, by the way. Christina, you're funny. But that's an interesting insight, isn't it? And again, I don't know if it's because I was super smart or if I was super stupid. That even though I'm mixing my calls to actions with it's a newsletter, it's an ebook, and it's a 5-day mini course, and I'm combining different things together from different stuff, I was able to move forward. I was able to gather experience, and I was able to get insight to look back later on and say, okay, now that I've done that, and this is the worst I can do, anything that I do next is going to be an improvement on that. So big lessons for you. Sometimes you just have to make do. That's just the way that it is. I mean, bad news bears. He started with a pretty bad team. Then after he made do for a little bit, then he improved upon it based on the experience that he was having. But yeah, it's hard to sell something you don't know about or believe in. The real challenge, though, is sometimes you don't really know actually what you do believe in. And what do you suppose is the best way to find out if you actually truly believe in something? Try it out, do it, see what happens when you acquire that experience, and then make adjustments. Does that make sense? Here's another milestone that I hit. So just like the milestone today, 100 sessions. So I was thinking about the second big milestone that I made. So the first one was I did make some money online. Not a lot, and it was a lot of effort, and if I stuck with it over time, 6 to 8 months, I probably could have done pretty good, but I was impatient. So the second milestone that hit was my first job quitting online income. And so this is an example of morphing experience. While I did not like or care for or was really successful at writing articles under the name Kurt Dite, I did realize that I could write articles relatively fast on subjects that I knew very little about nor cared about. And there's some value in that specifically. And again, at the time, because this is what the market was demanding, lots of people needed articles written for them. And so what I did one day in a stroke of pure brilliance was I, on the Warrior Forum, edited my profile so that way every time I made a post or responded to a post on the Warrior Forum, you saw this little tagline at the bottom that says, need articles written fast that are pretty good quality? Click here for more information, something along those lines. And so all I did was I put that in there, and I went and I just started posting responses to stuff on the Warrior Forum. Not a lot, but just enough to get my name out there. And I got a paying client by the end of the night. Now here's what's very interesting. And I remember this day very vividly. It was very defining in my life. At this point in time when we were painting houses, and I worked for a very, very tough, very mean guy who actually built the house now that I'm in at this very moment speaking to you from. But boy, he was tough to work for. And we had worked about 23 days in a row straight, I think, because he worked us very hard. And we did a lot of interior work, but occasionally we did some exterior work, and this was one of those days, and it rained out. So thank goodness I got some rain. So that morning I said, I got finally a full day, a first break I've had in a long time. And I want to ghostwrite because I just got the feeling that I could do this for other people. So I created a website in one day. It was about 6 hours of work. And because I only had articles in the pickup artist niche, I was like, I need to create a website. I need to create a variety of different articles. So it looks like, at least it looks like I have experience. And I'm going to throw this up, and I'm going to try to solicit clients. And I was able to do that in a single day, and I was able to then get my first paying client by the end of the night. And within 7 days of doing that, I had made enough money to replace the money I was making from painting houses. So within 7 days, I quit painting houses. Now, by the way, and again, this is very interesting, I went back into the Wayback Machine, and I dug out what that looked like. Here was the quote-unquote website that I used. It was a one-pager. And there's some images that are missing that are no longer there. Again, another Dreamweaver special. High-quality articles in less than 22.5 hours, because I read somewhere from some copywriter that if you were specific, maybe that could help with conversions. My name is Jason Fladlien. If you need articles written for you, then there are 3 things you should know about me. My flat rate is $1.50 per 100 words. Oh my God, that's nothing. I often write 25 500-word plus articles a day. If you need 25 articles or less, I can write them and return them for you in under 23 hours. What the hell I was doing, I don't know. Did I come across as desperate? You bet your ass I came across as desperate, right? And then I go on and say, check this out. If you'd like to, you could send me an email here with this subject line. I'll respond back to you. This is my requirements. Thanks. It's actually not a bad piece of copy for a guy who didn't know what he was really doing at the time. I looked back later and I was like, that's not too bad. And then I actually put my phone number at the time, no longer my phone number, so don't try to call it anymore. And then I had these articles. And it's kind of funny if you actually analyze these articles, because one of the first articles is, if you would like to learn how to become a better public speaker, I will give you the most important tips on how to do so. And then I had another article, The Truth About Time Management. And then it was, blah, blah, blah. And half these articles started almost exactly the same way as Adobe Photoshop right for you. If you want to learn how to edit images and photos with a spelling error in the first line, but aren't sure what software to purchase, then you'll be interested in read blah, blah, blah. These are not even that good. And I wrote them all, one after the other, after the other, after the other, just so I could show a portfolio for clients to hire me from. So the insights on this for you are what exactly? Again, how many things were screwed up during this process? Pretty much a lot, almost all of it. But it goes back to that thing, is something is better than nothing, right? Now here's something else that should have impressed upon you, hopefully. The power of a deadline. The power of a deadline. In this case, external factors forced the deadline upon me because I didn't have any other time to do it because of the hours that I was keeping. So I was either lucky enough or smart enough or a combination of the two to realize that it might not be good, it might be riddled with spelling errors and mistakes, it might be a simple one-page website, but let me just put something out there and see what happens. Everything, have you heard me say this before? Everything you do that's worth doing should have a deadline? Everything that you do that's worth doing should have a deadline. Do you operate with constant deadlines? A lot of people don't because they think it's too much pressure to operate with a deadline constantly looming over them. Here's the reality. It's amazing what the human condition can get comfortable with. It really is. In fact, I think it's scarier to work without a deadline because when you don't have a deadline, what do you have? And the answer is uncertainty, isn't it? Without a deadline, you have uncertainty. You have a task with nothing concrete or specific that you can wrap your mind around, right? But when you have the deadline, it's very concrete and it's very focused and it puts things in perspective and it automatically almost categorizes what you need to do. A lot of people, when they say to me, Jason, I'm not sure what I should be doing. I'm confused. I'm overwhelmed. I'm lost. I'm stuck. That is usually symptomatic of not having a deadline. Because if you had a deadline, it almost compels and forces. It almost compels and forces you to get things done. Yeah. Now it's funny, the more structured my day is, the more I feel free actually. Because I can create blocks around certain things, and that actually frees up more time for me to do other things. Whether those are things of pleasure or those are things of profit. It's weird, but that seems to be how it works. So hopefully this will give you the kind of feeling that maybe I should reevaluate it. And don't dive all the way in head first because you might hit your head on the ground, right? Just start working with a small deadline for something simple. This is an interesting deadline that you might want to consider. Give yourself a deadline of doing 5 really nice things a day for some other people, and you have to do it before 10 a.m. in the morning. 10 a.m. in the morning, 5 nice things for 5 different people. That's your task for tomorrow. And you'll say, whoa, I've now made 5 people happier by 10 a.m. than I have all of last week. Not because you couldn't do it, because you could do it. It's just because you weren't compelled to do it before because you weren't using a deadline to impose upon yourself to do it. And then deadlines create habits. Next milestone. The first dollar I ever earned selling an information product. Was November 12th, 2007. I still have the screenshot to prove it. Yeah, and in Pavan, this is funny. The only reason I stayed on that last slide is because I forgot to create the insight slide for that slide. Whoops. I'm still doing things just to get them done because of the power of the deadline. I'm like, oh man, got up this morning, got to write this presentation, right? The power of a deadline. The first dollar I ever made selling an information product was November 12, 2007. My PayPal screenshot right here shows this. The product that I sold, and you might have heard me tell this story before if you followed along with me for a little bit, was $4. And at the time, PayPal took a whopping percentage on small transactions. In this case, they took 42 cents off the dollar, over 10%. So I was left in most instances with $3.58 per sale. Now, if you follow along with me yesterday, I was selling a $5,000 product. So to go all the way in that span of time from $4 to $5,000 is kind of incredible and interesting. And we'll talk more about that as we go along. Now, Pavan, actually, I remember this. Pavan was one of my first customers ever in internet marketing. Pavan bought this product when it was actually at $4. And about 2,000 people bought this product when it was at $4. And it cost me about $80 in advertising to sell this. And so within 1 month, I did make about $5,000, $6,000. In fact, the first week I listed this product, I was ghostwriting still. And I made the same amount of money selling this information product, even though it was $4, that I did all week writing articles for other people. And that's when I realized, wow, there may be something to this. You would not believe how many customers are still with me to this very day. What are we looking at time-wise? 7 years later? 7.5 years later? How many customers who first bought at $4, just like Pavan did, who are still with me 7 years later, buying stuff from me, and opening and reading my emails, and attending my webinars? Isn't that incredible, the power of a customer-vendor relationship and what that can do for you? That's why I think everybody should eventually, sooner rather than later, sell their own stuff under their own brand, whether it's physical or digital products. It doesn't matter, but that's the only way that you can acquire the currency of a customer relationship. What do they call this on a balance sheet? They call this goodwill, right? It's a valuation in a company is goodwill. It's not something you can specifically quantify directly, but there it sits nonetheless. Oh, thank you so much, and I appreciate that. Now, this product, let me give you the insight on it. You've probably heard me when I've pitched Product E-Class talk about this product, but I'll talk about it from a non-pitch perspective. This product was called How to Write an Article in 7 Minutes. So after doing all of this stuff, writing articles for other people, I had developed a very reliable, very consistent formula for spitting out, and I was writing articles on stuff like buckwheat pillows and microdermabrasion. One of my favorite clients had me write articles for plus-size lingerie. That was a fun one, plus-size lingerie, right? And I was writing all these different articles, and I developed a little system, and I knew, for many months, I knew that other people could benefit from writing the system, but here was my quandary. My quandary was this. I didn't know how to drive traffic with those articles, and I thought, you know, people really want to know how to drive traffic and make money with those articles. And I didn't know how to do that because I was just writing it for other marketers. The one thing I did realize, though, is I could write it fast. So I didn't think the audience necessarily wanted just to write articles fast. I figured they wanted to make money directly with those articles. And I didn't know how to do that without writing for other people, and most of the market didn't want to write for other people. But finally, after 4 or 5 months of being fed up, writing so many damn articles for all these weird topics, I said, what the hell? I'll just do it. So I did it. I had never written a sales letter in my life to sell an information product prior to that. I had never created an information product prior to that. And I did both of those in a single day. The sales letter was not very good. The product was very short and very simplistic, and it was just about how to write an article in 7 minutes. Not how to get traffic with it, not where to publish it. And I could not believe how much people wanted to know that, because I hit upon a pain point in the market that I wasn't even aware existed. That all these people were spending 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour or longer on their article. And then I really hit the pain point very well after sell. Because once they bought the product, because it was so simplistic and so straightforward and so laid out, because I forced myself to do it as fast as I possibly could, so I only focused on the really good stuff, the really important stuff, people were getting results. Now, I sold this on the Warrior Forum under the WSO special offer section, so I paid $20 to take an ad out. There was no affiliates back then that could promote WSOs. So this was pure forum traffic that was buying this thing. And people were posting right in the thread. I bought this. The first time I applied it, I reduced my article writing time from 45 minutes to 20 minutes. I didn't get 7 minutes yet, but just the fact that I cut my writing time in half is phenomenal. And it created this buying frenzy that was independent of any sales approach that I took to make that happen. So the insights on this are very, very, very incredible for you to understand and really think about, internalize, and use in your own business. Simplicity is paramount to success. Simplicity is paramount to success. When in doubt, simplify. When in doubt, simplify. I don't know why. I think this is God's twisted sense of humor. And I hope God does have a really good, really twisted sense of humor. Otherwise, a lot of stuff doesn't make sense. But we are hardwired at birth to make things complex. Children are so wonderful, aren't they? Because they can really simplify the heart of the matter. Becoming a father has been very enlightening to me because children can just say it without making it complicated. However, as we grow, we learn to complicate things, usually unnecessarily. The first version is the worst version, is another saying that I like to tell my team. The first version is the worst version because once it's out there and you can see it objectively, then you can decide how you want to improve upon it. Simplicity is paramount to success. One of the greatest exercises that you can do in the next week in your business and in your life is to start taking note of tasks you're performing. And ask yourself, am I taking a simple approach or am I taking a complex approach? And I'm not saying you immediately reduce everything down to simplicity because that's maybe overshock. But if once a week you can identify something that you're making more complex than it needs to be and simplify it, if you add that up and do that once a week over the next 52 weeks, life is much better for you. Do you suppose, and here's a question for you, and I love the answer to it, do you suppose that I face unbridled pressure, the likes of which most people do not face on a daily basis to perform? Do you suppose I'm always under the constant gun of having to perform and be at a top level of performance to be responsible to the shareholders of Rapid Crush and the employees of Rapid Crush and my customers and my affiliate and my own personal family and my employees' families, right? I probably handle more stress on a daily basis, in a sense, than what most people do or ever will. And most people are not even willing to take upon that so-called stress. But then listen to me. I want you to imagine how much I've worked over the last week, which is mostly more than I ever work. Probably put in over 100 hours in the last week. Worked until 4 in the morning yesterday, well, 2 in the morning. Do I sound stressed? Do I sound stressed right now? Or do I sound like I feel good? Do I sound excited to be here with you today? Listen to the tonality. Listen to the pacing. Listen to the delivery. I don't feel stress. I don't feel stressed at all. Now, that's not to say there's times where I got pressure where I would rather not have it. That's going to happen, you know? But you can find ways to understand and manage just about anything. And again, measure the results. Does the average person that you follow in internet marketing, do they sound like they enjoy what they do compared to how I sound? Or am I not unique in the sense of maybe there's few others like me? There are a few others that are like me in terms of delivery and flair and excitement and a genuine sense of really loving what they do. But we're a rare bird, aren't we? Parkus is still laughing and crazy after all these years. That's a Paul Simon thing. I love Paul Simon. Yeah, isn't it kind of sad? See, I realized very early on in my career that I have to be an example for my audience, not just give them information and technique and methodology, but I should be an example of how they carry themselves and how they approach things. I should be a model. And so I said, if I'm going to teach them how to do life-changing stuff, but my life doesn't sound like it's exciting or seem like it's exciting, then what the hell am I doing? And so I figured out a way. It's not that it was automatically there. I had to work at it. But I asked myself, and this is a wonderful question to ask yourself, what would it take for blank to occur? The presupposition is strong there, isn't it? What would it take for blank to occur? How can I be happy with no reason at all? How can I learn to smile just because? What would it take for me not to care about things that most people care about that they shouldn't care about? That's the beginning, and then you say, okay, how can I habitualize this so it becomes automatic to me? The other very powerful insight that is absolutely critical to your business and your life is, can it operate with severe inefficiencies and still produce a worthwhile results? How dysfunctional is Google? How dysfunctional is Google? The answer is they are extremely dysfunctional. My Amazon sellers who just started with us, you will come to find exactly how dysfunctional Amazon is, how broken some of their stuff is, how horrible their Seller Central support is, how certain things, like one day, for example, we had a counterfeiter get on our listing. We reported him. Amazon says, no problem, we'll take him off for you, and they accidentally blocked us instead of the counterfeiter. Whoops. Yet also, in spite of all these incredible inefficiencies, Amazon is the #1 retailer online. It's never perfect, and it never will be perfect, and imperfection is the most perfect thing in the world. You need to learn how to simplify in ways that are going to be powerful for the result that you want. Once you get it going with simplicity, then you can always improve upon it later on. There will be one or two things that you will be able to handle from a level of complexion. The marketing campaign that I just laid out for the last week was one of the most complex things that you would ever lay hands on when it comes to marketing campaigns. It was incredibly complex. But I'm able to sort and manage and deal with and deploy as a result of this because all the building blocks for that complexity are simplistic. Because I have got them down now to the point at the level where they're just innate, I can combine simplistic things together to create the most powerful, most complex, unrivaled stuff that exists in certain instances. And I don't know any other way to do it. Everybody wants to start at the end without making the journey at the beginning to get to the end. If you can be that rare individual that simplifies things and really says this is what needs to be done and this is the most important and everything else can be inefficient as long as this gets done, and you can learn to work and actually thrive in inefficiencies, I think that'll be incredible for you. And I gave you the exercise. Do you remember the exercise? The exercise is start identifying stuff throughout the week that you find yourself making overly complex. And then one time per week, taking one thing and simplifying it and reducing it. In 1 year, that's 52 things you have simplified. By then, it will be a habit. And pretty soon, everything that you begin to approach will be viewed through that lens. And then, by the way, complexity is gotten through simplicity. You take those simplistic building blocks and you weave and you connect them together to do truly amazing things. Next milestone. Oh, Charlotte has a great question. Let me answer this real fast. How can you pretend to have an exciting life if you do not have it? For example, pretend and still be authentic. That's a very wonderful question, Charlotte. The language is very interesting there because I can understand how you might think it's pretending, or it could be construed as pretending, but the idea isn't to pretend, right? The idea is to ask the question, what would it take for blank to occur? Or what would need to be in place for whatever to occur? Here's the reality. Anything's exciting if you think about it that way. Electricity? That's amazing. Isn't electricity amazing? But a lot of people don't think about it that way. Just think about it as something that exists and that's there for them, that they can use, and they can flick a light on and it's gone. It's there. You're done. But isn't that exciting if you think about it in the correct way, if you view it through a certain lens? Anybody here familiar with epistemology? The study of how the senses process the reality around it. I think that's what it is. Epistemology, right? Here's an example. You look at a desk that's brown, and you see from your lens, your senses process that, and it tells you that desk is brown, right? However, do you realize in the color spectrum objectively, guess what color does not exist? What color does not exist in the color spectrum? And you're looking at a brown desk, and you're telling me, Jason, it's not brown, right? But that's the way that you see it. Now, on a molecular level, there is no such thing as a desk. If you got down close enough, you will realize that's just atoms crammed together. You see something that's stationary. But it's not stationary. Your desk is moving. It literally has motion inside of it. It depends the way you view the thing. The whole concept of the theory of relativity is your reference point. I don't want to get too geeky on you here. Maybe it's some homework for you to consider doing. Time dilation, right? The twin paradox. Anybody here familiar with the twin paradox? It's a very cool concept. Two twins, you send one in a spaceship that can approach the speed of light, and he travels there, and he travels back to Earth, and in the same amount of time that he's gone, he comes back, and he's different in age than his twin who stayed on Earth. That's real. It can't be proven exactly until we can get to the speed of light, right? But it is so commonly accepted that that's exactly what will probably happen. That's why it's still called a theory. Now, a theory in science is different than a theory in the real world. But it's so incredibly likely that something that will happen that it's accepted by the scientific community that you could take two twins, put one in a spaceship, send them out at the speed of light, almost, and have him come back in 20 years, and he will not be 20 years older. He will be younger than his twin on Earth who stayed there because of the frame of reference. So it's really to bring the point home. It's how you view and interpret the reality around you. It's not necessarily pretending, it's creating situations where you can fulfill it and make it happen. Life is really an exciting concept at the end of the day. I just ask myself, how can I look at life in ways that naturally, authentically make me feel excited about living life? I mean, water to me is so fascinating. I love water. It's like, what a wonderful thing to exist in this world. Something that can nourish you and sustain you. And it's all around us. And it could be in 3 different forms. 3 different forms! 3 forms! Solid, liquid, and gas. Isn't that incredible? I don't know why, but maybe I'm always fascinated. But maybe I think it's a skill we all were born with and then we forgot how to use. Fascination can go a long ways. And you can manifest that fascination different than me. There's different personality types. You don't have to have the flair that I have. You don't have to get as excited outwardly as I do. But as long as you can learn to look at certain things in a way that makes you appreciate and feel really good, that will automatically translate in your interactions with other people. Doesn't that make sense? That'll automatically translate in your interactions with other people. Okay? Something to think about. Weird. Weird, but yeah. And keep in mind, I used to be a monk. Okay? True story. So maybe I have a little bit of background in here. Moving on. Milestone. Now, you might think, gee, damn, Jason, you got everything all figured out. Not really. Because the first marketing seminar I ever went to, I don't know the exact date because I couldn't find it before here, but I think it was in 2008. And it was, again, the Warrior Forum seminar because that's where I got my comeuppance. And I went down there and I flew down to Austin, Texas. And I said, all right, I'm going to go to the, Hare Krishna, that's right. I'm going to fly down and I'm going to go to this seminar. And I very, very, very vividly remember what made me want to do that. So one day I go over to my former boss's house, the guy I used to paint for. He's kind of a friend of the family because my dad was his wrestling coach in high school. And so I go over to his house and I touch base with him because now I'm working for myself. I don't work for him anymore, but we stayed in touch. And I says to him, his name is Brett. I said, hey, Brett, I'm thinking about going down to this marketing seminar. I think it'd be worthwhile for my business. And you know what he said to me? And it was so powerful. And keep in mind, this guy is he's a hard ass. He's hard to work for. You know what he says to me? He says, Oh, don't give me that bullshit. He goes, you're not going to do it. You're just like your old man, because he knows my dad, right? He says, why don't you just do it? Quit bullshitting around and actually just go off and do it. I don't want to hear this thinking about crap. Why don't you man up and just get on that damn plane and go down there? And however he said it or exactly what he said to me that day, I don't know exactly how he did it. But he had the ability really to tweak people's emotions to get them to do things. Whether they were in your best interest or not is debatable. They were in his best interest in some instances. But in this case, I think he really did understand that. I guarantee you, if he did not say what he said to me that day, I would not have attended this. I wouldn't have went down there. And I don't know how much that would have affected my life in the long run, but it did make me appreciate. Now, keep in mind, at this time, I am about 26 years old, 25 years old. Prior to this, I had never been on a plane in my life, and I'm 25, 26 years old. What a sheltered life I had lived, right? I was scared to death the first time I got on a plane. I've since flown probably like 200 times. Now I can actually enjoy God, I actually love flying now because it's like, experiencing the world at 30,000 feet as opposed to being on the ground. It's phenomenal. But at the time I was scared. But I get on this plane and I fly down there anyway. I don't know anybody and nobody knows me. I'm just some schmuck in the crowd. I made a couple $1,000 online a month, like 4 or 5, 6,000 in some months. Publishing at this point, I think I had 3 products published. And I go down there and I start being around the people who I thought really got it. I said, boy, if anybody's dialed into marketing, it's these people. Yeah, I never did get a flight before 9/11. I've heard stories. I've only experienced TSA style flying. But I figure these people really know what they're doing. They really have it dialed in. And much to my chagrin, much to my shock, but maybe also to my delight, I realized how highly dysfunctional and completely unspecial most of these people were. Now, it's kind of funny, because Marlon Sanders is the guy on in the camera right now. At the time, I worshiped Marlon. And then actually later on, Marlon became a very good friend of mine. And I absolutely respect and appreciate all that Marlon has done for me and all the help he's given me along the way. So I'm not saying everybody was like that, because Marlon was truly a one of a kind. But most of the people that were there, I was like, really? These guys are making 10 times as much money as me? I'm not very impressed. That was my feeling. I almost got angry. I said, what the hell? They have my customers. Now, my customers don't know they're my customers yet, and these guys don't know they have my customers yet. But I said, damn it, if my customers are spending money with this stuff, which is good, but it's not great, I am really screwing it up if I'm not getting in front of these people. And that really motivated me to dig down there and step it up and say, I have to figure out a way, because I know I can do it, serve these customers better than what they have available to them right now. But I never would have thought that way if I would have stayed in my bubble. It's incredible how putting yourself out there and forcing yourself out of your comfort zone can help you grow as a person. Now, you can't always do this. You can't live in a state of perpetual uncomfortableness. You just can't. If you do that, then life's not very fun. But you have to have what I call controlled chaos. Controlled chaos. Just a little bit of uncomfortableness to continue to grow over time. You can control uncomfortable. Right? And at the same time, realize that there's nobody really that can be better than you at something if you put your mind to it and you want to focus on it and go after it. Now, that doesn't mean that I am going to be able to be a better boxer than Floyd Mayweather. That's my big treat for the weekend, watching that. And that doesn't necessarily mean that, I'm going to become president of the United States. Let's be straight with each other here. There are certain real actual limitations that are very incredibly hard to break through no matter what you do on your end. But I am saying that for simpler stuff, like serving a marketplace, especially in a niche market, or for simpler stuff like creating something out there that other people would appreciate, if you focus intently for a certain period of time, it is amazing how much better than you can be than everybody else. And you don't have to be better by a lot. Say you're in a crowd of people and every single person in that crowd is 5 feet 10 inches high. And you're 5 feet 11 inches high. How much do you stand out from the rest? You actually stand out like a sore thumb. Even though you're only 1 inch taller than everybody else. Yeah, I want Pacquiao to win. He probably won't, though. Everybody else is 5 feet 10 inches. You're 5 feet 11 inches. You stand out from the crowd like you wouldn't believe. The reason why, and now this is the paradox. This is the paradox. It's only an inch. But if it's quote unquote only an inch, why isn't everybody else growing an inch? And maybe that's not the best metaphor because you can't force yourself to grow in terms of height once you become an adult, really, right? But really, everybody typically settles for adequate. So you have to do that initial extra push to be slightly better than adequate in one way. And it's not 100 ways, it's just in one way. You have to learn how to push yourself to be slightly better than adequate. So that way, guess what happens? When the market needs that thing from you, that one little extra thing, that one little extra inch that you have that nobody else has means a tremendous amount in the eyes of your marketplace. One of the things that I focused on when I started was communication. I thought, you know what? Communication seems very important to me when it comes to connecting with markets, because markets are composed of people, and how I interact with markets is nothing more than communication. So I focused on how can I do communication that creates empowering emotional states in the people that I can reach. Because if I can do that, then the content of the message is not nearly as important as the emotional state that I can create in somebody, and learning how to do that in such a way. That was kind of a thing that I set out to do. And when I saw everybody else at this event and how they all kind of spoke the same, how they all used the same techniques to connect with the audience, which were good standard technique, right? I said, what can I do to be a little bit better than them, or a little bit different than them, so I can be 1 inch taller than them when it comes to shouting my message out, right? I'll be just a little bit louder than them so I can be heard and cut through all the noise. But I never would have done that if I didn't push myself out of the comfort zone, I don't think. Maybe I would have eventually done that later, but doing that now. Putting yourself in a position where you're uncertain will allow you to grow mentally if you treat it as a school. Now, you can put yourself in a position of uncomfortableness, and the only thing that you can think of, oh, God, this sucks, that's not treating it as a school anymore, right? But that's a choice you have now. And hopefully, and again, don't go crazy on this. Start small and habitualize it. My job as a seller is very often I'm trying to get you to spend money to do something that you're not comfortable with. Think about the challenge there. The first affiliate to ever promote me was a gentleman named Dennis Becker. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful man. I did not have an affiliate program the first 9 months that I was selling online. My formula prior to having affiliates promote my products was this: find, prove, document, sell. What I mean is this: find something that people seem to really want to know the answer to. Prove the concept of my answer. Document the proof in a step-by-step fashion in an information product. Sell it to the audience that I could reach by paying money to advertise in front of at the Warrior Forum. And then eventually sell enough product that people started joining my email list. So then I can email my list too. And then eventually I just started emailing my list. But I didn't, in 2007 and in 2008, you would not believe how incredibly hard it was to set up an affiliate program. You could go to ClickBank. But I didn't want to go to ClickBank. I didn't like ClickBank. I didn't like the restrictions that they imposed upon us. So you know what other options there were available at the time? Not very many. There was like one shopping cart, but that seemed way too complex for me, and I didn't want a shopping cart. I just wanted a simple affiliate program. So I signed up with something called Rapid Action Profits, which you had to set up like a PHP admin, MySQL database, and that took me like a week just to figure it out. And it cost me $300 to buy this thing at the time to set up this database to run this. But I only did it because one day Dennis bought my product, and he wrote into me and he said, "This is really good stuff. I would like to promote it to my audience." And it shocked me, and it hit me like a thunderbolt that while most customers do not have audiences and most customers do not have influence in any given market, when you start selling enough product, some of it's going to reach in the hands of people that appreciate it, that find value from it, and can help you spread it to further people. Now, there's two types of affiliates. This is very interesting. There's two types of affiliates. The first type of affiliate is largely motivated for the commission, and so that's the biggest thing that they decide upon when they want to promote something. And I'm not judging that. That's an acceptable way of running a business. It really is, and that's how most people do it. Now, when they promote something in their email communication and in their approach and in their positioning, it has a certain effect, right? Typically, their conversion rates and their earnings per click won't be as high, but would you mind if somebody who didn't really believe in your product but thought they could make money with it promoted it? Would that bother you at all? Doesn't bother me. That's their choice of how they want to run their business, and it makes me money. If you think promoting me is great and you don't even know what my product is, you don't even care, but you've got an audience of people that could benefit from my product, I don't give a shit. I don't really care if it, on one level I do care, because if you spent the time to really get into it and believe it and then promoted it, we could all make more money. But I'll take money. If you're giving it, I'll take it, right? So imagine the rude awakening I was in when Dennis Becker, my first affiliate, who happened to be a customer first and foremost, before he was an affiliate, could talk to his audience and talk about him buying this product, him using it, his results, and how much he really loved it, and put his seal of approval on it. And I'm just some no-name nobody, small-town Iowa boy. And Dennis Becker was a very established guy. He'd been making hundreds of thousands of dollars online when I was dropping out of college. And the amount of sales that he sent to me was staggering at the time. And then a couple weeks later, one of the people that he sent also turned around and said, "Jason, do you have an affiliate program?" So they had to ask me. They had to go to the extra mile. But the only people that promoted me at first were customers. And so this created this initial demand that was very hard to satiate, because everybody was saying all this good stuff about me. And then once later on, other affiliates started coming hearing about my stuff and trying to promote it to make a buck, I did discover that that's a different world. It doesn't never really sell as good, no matter if their list is 100 times bigger or not. But there's some insights there. There's some insights to having certain advocates in your business. A few advocates can take you a very long way. So the question is exactly, what do you need to do to create an advocate? It doesn't necessarily even have to be anything amazing. It's just having to know a segment of a market very, very deeply and being able to specifically talk to that segment. That can create such a strong appeal towards your brand or your offer that if you send that to enough people, you're going to hit somebody who's going to help you in ways that you can't even imagine to grow your business or to grow your message or whatever it is that you're doing. And really, here's the insight. I stuck to what I was good and I improved upon it. So I didn't try to go out there and recruit affiliates. I didn't try to figure out 150 different ways to drive traffic. I drove traffic one way. I created products one way. I sold those products one way. And I did that consistently. And over time, I made slight improvements. And eventually, before I knew it, I could do it so damn well that then it made sense to step it up another level. But I focused on that one or two or three things and got really, really good at it. And then when opportunity came as a result of that, I recognized it and acted upon it. And that's how it's going to happen for you, too. The first webinar I ever did was for a real-time product creation of a course on productivity. I can't even remember what it was now. It was prior to Double Your Productivity for Life. I had this productivity course, and I sent it out to my email list. And I said, you know what? You can attend for free if you come to me live on this webinar, but if you don't come live on the webinar, I'm not going to give you the recording for free. You're going to have to pay for it. And so some people, not a lot, a small percentage who signed up even came on to the webinar. Now, you got to understand this was in 2008. So webinars, almost nobody did them back then. So a few people showed up, and they got the product for free. And then I emailed the list the next day, and I said, hey, you missed it. I'm going to sell this thing for $37, but for the next 48 hours, you can get it for $27. A second chance offer to you. And by the way, for the people that were on the webinar, here's what they had to say about the content. And that thing sold so damn well at the time, it blew my mind. I never really had used scarcity before that. That was the first time I ever used scarcity. And I kind of just made it up. But the amount of sales that came through was incredible. And the first course I ever did was for a paid product, not for a pitch. Some of the best marketing breakthroughs that will come to you will be by accident. That's what happened to me. Just trying different stuff once I accumulated that audience so I could put stuff in front of them and measure it. Now, trying new stuff now and nobody sees it, that's not going to be very helpful to you, is it? Because you can't make adjustments with real-time marketplace data. But once you acquire an audience and once you've got a message out there that's compelling enough to force an audience towards you, then you can try new things. And occasionally one of them will hit. So the only reason I tried that new thing was just because I was like, oh, this is a new technology. Let me play with it and see how it responds. And I'm making it up as I go along, and I accidentally stumbled upon a mechanism that drove more sales for me in a 24-hour period than anything I'd ever seen before. So I said, we should do more of that. So the conclusion here is create a system with predictability and reliability, yet also introduce a bit of chaos consistently. Consistent chaos. Controlled chaos. Get it up, get it going. Once you have the audience, you can then manipulate certain things, see how they measure, and keep the good stuff. Nobody remembers the dumb stuff. They forget that. Keep the good stuff. After that, very shortly after that, I said, wow. At this point in time in my life, the highest price I ever sold a product was $47, and really nobody bought it at $47. It was artificially inflated. I'd say it's $47 to the public, but you can get it for $37, right? And nobody ever spent the $47. They just bought the $37 version. So really, the only thing I'd ever consistently sold as far as high ticket went was $37. First high ticket course that I sold that was over $37, I leaped immediately for $37 to $197. And the offer went like this. And here's how it came about. Very interesting scenario, and this is why I know these two milestones are very interlinked to each other, is I signed up for the 30-day free trial of GoToWebinar just to try that experiment out where I sold that productivity course, the real time that I created in real time, right? Which nobody was doing that back then, by the way. And I'm sitting there and I'm jogging one day. I'm exercising outside, and I'm running in my head. I'm like, should I keep GoToWebinar or not? If I keep it, it'll be $97 a month. And that's what it was at the time. It's not that anymore, by the way. And I'm thinking, should I let it expire? And I said, you know what? I would like to keep it, but let me make it pay for itself. And while I'm out jogging, I conceptualized this idea one day that if I write a sales letter and I say, hey, I'm going to let 16 people come in and learn copywriting from me live over a 12-week period of time, I go, I bet you I could sell it for like $200 because now I can position this as coaching, not as information. And I went out there and I did it. And I sold that thing out in 4 hours. And I thought, whoops, I really screwed that up. I could have sold 20, 30, 40, 50 units probably. I don't know if I could have sold that much, but 16 people at $200 at the time, that was all in my pocket because there was no affiliate marketing that went on there, just purely from my internal list. What's the math on that? What's 16 people times $200? Yeah, and you can go ahead and go to the kickoff, George. You can always listen to the recording of this. But 16 times 200 is what? Not a lot. Sorry, I normally can do $3,200. Thanks, David. Thanks for. I don't know. Maybe that's a lot of money. I think it is a lot of money, isn't it? It's hard for me to relate. But at the time, it was a lot of money. I basically got paid $3,200 up front for a course that I had to deliver later on. Yeah, it was a lot. For me at the time, I know it was a lot. To make $3,200 in a single day, I never had a payday like that before, potentially. And to me, it was really a lot because I'll tell you why. I saw the potential in it. I thought, Jesus, get paid first and then fulfill later? Now, here's an interesting thing. Does anybody know who Chad Castleman is? Now keep in mind, I end up doing 12 two-hour webinars, 24 hours of work for that. Okay, maybe a lot of people don't know who Chad Castleman is, but do you know what JV Zoo is? So Chad Castleman he's one of the founders of JV Zoo. He's not a face, but he's the programmer for JV Zoo. The head programmer, he built their whole system from scratch. So Chad was one of the original members of that copy e-class that I sold. He was one of the original members. And then he went on and he did amazing, wonderful, crazy stuff. But I first got to know Chad from that, and it was amazing. There was other really wonderful people that were in that. That was the first course I ever sold where somebody took it and made a serious amount of money. There was a gentleman named Martin there who took my thing, he applied it to his business in Brazil, and he sold like $6,000 of product between week 1 and week 2. And I never had anybody do something that incredible, that fast, that powerful. But the conclusion on this is I discovered the power of limited seating, which I didn't know. Just the fact that there was a number of spots available and that was it, how incredible that is from a marketing perspective. It might be old hat now, but in 2008, at least to me, and maybe I'm not that smart, that was like a revelation to me. It wasn't so much the money, although $3,200 at the time was pretty cool up front. What was incredible to me at the time was how little effort it took to sell it. I didn't sell it on a webinar, by the way. I sold it from a long form sales letter because I didn't know how to sell on a webinar. I still had never sold anything on a webinar in my life. The other insight is selling something that does not yet exist. Once you went to fulfill it, you could adapt over time. One of the reasons I've gotten so good at working with my customers and really figuring out what they want and what they desire so I can sell it to them is because I adapted a lot in the fulfillment initially when I started creating my first stuff. Easy money. It really was. And it really started down the path of something wonderful that I perfected. You might hear e-classes a lot today, but at the time nobody was doing e-classes. I very well might have been the first person to coin the term e-class in internet marketing. I don't know for sure if I was or not, but I was surely the first one to perfect them. And it started there. I sold my first business. That was a gigantic milestone, $32,000, which again, I don't want to diminish it, all right? Everything is relevant. Oh, and by the way, Charlotte, I did stick to the limited spaces, yes. I think it was a smart move. I weighed it back then. I could have took 3 or 4 or 5 people in. But I actually looked at it and said, if my audience sees me close this offer and I stick to that number, they know I mean business. So yeah, I could have took more money in, but I chose not to. Not because I'm like an all-around fantastic individual, but because to me in the long term it seemed to make more sense to my business to stick to that number. By the way, everybody was using fake scarcity back then. And customers didn't even realize it was fake scarcity. Now we all know. But back then it's a different story, right? So I sell this business to dentists for $32,000. Now, this was a business called Daily Seminar that my business partner and I at the time, Robert Plank, created, where every day, 5 or 6 days a week, we would publish a new 20-minute training. It wasn't really the smartest concept that we ever came across, but it was something. And we put it out there and we see what happened. And we had at the time about 50, 60 paying members paying us $50 a month. So it was like a $3,000 a month income stream. And if you divided it between the two of us, not a lot of money. And we put about 4 hours of work in per month each, maybe 5, maybe 6 hours a week for this thing. But Dennis didn't want to buy it for the members. He wanted to buy it for the what? What did he want to buy this for? The intellectual property, right? Oh, thank you, Susan. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm a good seducer in certain aspects. You're right. He bought it for the intellectual property. Now, I'll tell you a story, a very interesting story here of how far we can go in so little amount of time, and hopefully it'll serve for you as a benchmark for the unbelievable, amazing things that you can do in your own life, in your own business. I go down to the bank with a $32,000 check. I go to cash it so I can give Robert a $16,000 split, right? And the banker is scared to cash it because at the time, a $32,000 check is a lot of money based on my account history. I have since had $1 million wire transfers into my account that have gone off without a hitch, which is kind of incredible, but at the time, $32,000 to me was amazing. And I thought, Jesus, again, the concept of if you're really good at something, other people would rather pay you than do it themselves. The goal, the trick, the approach is to be really good at something that doesn't take a lot of effort to be really good at. Does that make sense? Let me give you a fantastic example. One of the most powerful things I ever did in my business was I created this thing called how to set up a membership site in 2.5 minutes for free. How to set up a fully protected, fully functional membership site in less than 2 minutes and 26 seconds using completely free software. At the time, okay, markets do change, but at the time, this is like 2009, that was revolutionary. And that was the product that I created. Now here's the deal. You know what? I woke up one morning, recognized that the marketplace really, really wanted that, but there wasn't really any options for them. And so I set a goal. I said, I'm going to spend 4 or 5 or 6 hours hammering out different stuff to see if I could cobble together something that could achieve something along those lines. And I did. It took me about 6 hours, but by the time I was done, I combed the depths of the internet. And I found finally, after 2 hours, I found a free plugin that worked really good for a membership site. And then I combed the internet for about an hour or two and found a really good free WordPress theme that functioned very well and was very easy to use for a membership site. And then on top of that, I added a little bit of bells and whistles in terms of content. And boom, when I was done, I had an awesome product that nobody else had that really opened up the whole market. How to create a fully functional, password-protected membership site in 2 minutes and 26 seconds or less, all with completely free software. And I sold that product for $27. Do you understand? I was able to be 1 inch taller than everybody else, which is funny because I know, Maggie, you're not even 5 feet tall. Just because I found that one stupid little thing that the market wanted that was not getting and put it out there. Question to you, how do you suppose you find that? How do you discover what the market wants but is not getting? It's actually a lot simpler than you would imagine. First of all, you guess, because you really don't know until you put something in front of them and see if they buy or don't buy. But second of all, how do you really know? How do you really know besides guessing? You guess based on the second thing here, which is what? You have to hang out where they hang out at. You have to listen to your market speak, and you have to listen to two levels: the superficial level and the deep level. Okay? You've seen me pitch, I'm sure, before. When somebody says to me, "Oh, Jason, that's expensive. I don't want to buy that." And I'll say, "Is it expensive or is it something else? Are you scared to put that much money down? Is it too much money, or are you scared to commit that much money because you're not sure if you can get a result or not?" That's deep level communication right there. Does that make sense? They're telling me on the surface it's too much, but on the deep level, I ask myself, is that really what they're saying, or are they saying on the subtext that it's something more than that? It's incredible in a selling situation, by the way, but it's equally as important, or arguably even more valuable, when you're looking at the market. When everybody complains, I'll give you a great example. When everybody complains, it's so hard to set up a membership site. That's the superficial communication. What's the deep level communication? You ask yourself, well, why do so many people have such a challenge setting up a membership site? And the answer was because at the time there was no one place that had put together a process for them to do it from start to finish in a simplistic fashion without them spending $300 or $500 or $1,000. And so I figured this might maybe what they want, and I went out there and I solved it. I'll give you another example here in a little bit. Was that helpful for you, by the way, or would you like me to clarify that a little bit more? I can expand upon it now, or I can give you another example later. I think that'll be also helpful for you. Charlotte, by the way, says Product Geek class is brilliant. Thank you. I appreciate that, Charlotte. My first real big money came, so after my partnership with Robert Plink and before my partnership with Wilson Matos here, it was just me and Mary Jo. We started running this little business, and I remember the first time I did a six-figure month. It blew my mind. And anybody here ever seen the product Six Figure Baby? It's a product I created where I did 6 figures the month that my daughter was born, Lainey. So that was in 2010 in June. And this was really the result of that. I at the time I created this continuity program that was $97 a month because I worked backwards. I backed into the numbers. I said, gee, if I had 1,000 people paying $97 a month, that's a $100,000 a month continuity. That's a $100,000 number. Now, other people had the same kind of concept, so I asked myself, how can I slightly tweak that model to get a different result? So here's what I did. Remember that whole set up your fully functional membership site? When I created that product, it hit that market good, but instead of taking money on the initial sell, I let affiliates get 100% of the instant commission in their PayPal account when they promoted it. So I promoted that through Rapid Action Profits. Now on the thank you page, there was a video to try out my gold member coaching. Do we have any gold member coaching customers in here? What a stupid name. That was the name of my continuity program that I used to have. And I gave them this dollar trial for 14 days to get into the gold member coaching program. And then if they stayed in there and didn't cancel, we'd automatically bill them for 97 days until they either died or they canceled, right? Now here's the twist. So on the front end, I gave away 100%. And any affiliate got 100%. On the upsell, I had a different affiliate program, which was Infusionsoft. And only at the time, 2 affiliates got a cut on that $97 a month continuity. There were 2 JV brokers that were working on commission for me, Lance Tamashiro and Jit Uppel. And you might think, Jason, isn't that weird how affiliates, well, and by the way, Lance and Jit would go out there and recruit affiliates to promote this front-end product. And Lance and Jit would not get a single penny on anybody who promoted the front-end product, but they would only get money on the back end when somebody signed up for the continuity program. But these guys went out there. The first ever banner ad in the Warrior Forum. So if you go to the Warrior Forum now, you see these banner ads that always exist that are showing up right here, like this one. The first ever banner ad ever in the Warrior Forum was for my membership product. Nobody had ever had a banner ad before that. And I wake up one morning and somebody asked me, Jason, how the hell did you get a banner ad in the Warrior Forum? I said, I don't know. Because Lance and Jit went out there and got it done because they were motivated because they wanted to make money on the back end, not even on the front end. Now, out of 100 plus affiliates who promoted that product in the front end, do you think a single one of them asked about a piece of the back end or inquired about a piece of the back end? Out of 100, how many do you think asked about the back end? These are sophisticated marketers, supposedly, right? Okay, Rick says 5, Maggie says none. Yeah, 0. Not a single one. I told Lance and Jit because I was like, I felt kind of weird. No, I don't use the Warrior Forum anymore, Christina. Not to think it's a bad place anymore, but sometimes you go to bigger places, better bang for your buck once you get to a certain level. But I told Lance and Jed, I said, hey, if anybody asks about this, man, we'll cut them in on something. And I'll give you a 2-tier. You'll get 10% and they'll get 50%. But not a single person asked. Not a single person asked. They just wanted the 100% commission. I don't know. I didn't feel guilty about it, though, because if they didn't ask, I wasn't going to tell them. I ask. I always ask. But these guys went out there and they made a lot of money, and other people started seeing the money they were making, and they created this false demand, in a sense, because other people were like, I want to promote Jason's back end. Well, you can't. These two guys control it. And then I let them get a 2-tier on everybody that they referred onto the back end of this affiliate program. So they got 10% of every sell, at the very least, in this continuity program we had. And on a lot of instances, they got 50%. It's not that different of a model than you're used to, but it has 1 or 2 key tweaks. And those 1 or 2 key tweaks were responsible for a $100,000 a month income stream for many months. And the only reason we ever closed down the Gold Member Coaching Program was because the credit card crunch hit. And this coincides with the housing market, right? And when the credit crunch hit, all these cards were getting declined. It's not even that they were canceling. The rebills were getting declined at such a staggering rate. Some months 16 to 30% of all credit cards were getting declined because they tightened everything up, that I was so disillusioned with the marketplace that I just closed the whole program down. Because I was losing 30% of my customers a month who wanted to stay in there. My cancellation rates for people that were done with the program were lower than the decline rates from the credit card company. So I built a $100,000 business. It didn't last for too long, $100,000 a month business. And then I moved on. And hey, nothing's perfect, right? Christina asked, what's wrong with the ClickBank affiliate program? They take a huge cut for, frankly, I don't think enough value that they provide. Plus, ClickBank is rather stringent in the sense of what they do and do not approve, for better or worse. And I didn't want to have that kind of, somebody looking over my shoulder and kind of controlling things the way that I do. And that's why I didn't use ClickBank. Plus, I'll tell you the other reason. ClickBank was complicated for me. I just didn't understand it at the time to wrap my head around it. The biggest insight I learned from this, and I've used it ever since then, though, is you can back into the numbers. You say, in order to get to this number, X and Y need to happen. And then you make that a reality. The other thing I learned is 20% of the market spends 80% of its dollars. If you learn nothing else from this training today, learn that. 20% of the market spends 80% of its dollars. If you focus on and only appeal and go after that 20% of the market, you're going to make a majority of the money. 20% of the market spends 80% of its dollars. It's incredible, isn't it? First product I ever published with Wilson Matos was also my first product that I ever created as a software. Oh, by the way, Noreen asks, how do you find the 20%? Usually by selling higher priced items. That's I know, not every market. Like on Amazon, for example, that doesn't play out. Yeah, let me go back to that slide because I'm getting a couple questions here. For example, on Amazon, 80% of the dollars are spent by 20% of the customers. What that means is hyperactive, compulsive shoppers are Amazon's 20% of the market, which I love them for it. And I am one of those, by the way. Everybody makes fun of the fact that I order my toilet paper off Amazon. But I think it makes a lot of sense. So in some markets, like, let's take a look at the App Store, the Apple Store. Where is 80% of the money made in the App Store? It's made off of in-app purchases, right? And it's made off of in-app purchases from free games. They call it a freemium model. So 20% of the market who takes in-app purchases spends 80%. It's not an exact number, okay? It's actually probably a smaller percentage of the market that actually spends a higher percentage of the dollars. Probably 5% of the market that spends 90% of the market's money. But there's always this diversity in any marketplace. In internet marketing, which we're in, 20% of the market spends 80% of the dollars. Here's what that means. It means 8 out of 10 people will never buy a $2,000 course. But 2 out of 10 will. So if you have a list of 10,000 people, at most, only 2,000 of them would ever even consider buying something, no matter what, at $2,000. And again, it's not exactly broke down to that, because if you have a list of 10,000 people, 200 people would probably buy a $10,000 item if it was the right item for them. And you'll make more money off those 200 people, and you'll make them happier by focusing on them. And everybody else fights for the other 80%. So it's harder in a lot of ways to sell to the mass market doing it the way everybody else does it, when only a small amount of any market spends a majority of the market's dollars. You just have to analyze the trends and focus on those trends. Easier said than done. I get it, right? But that's the way it is. If you're blind, though, and not even aware of that, though, being aware of it can be tremendously valuable to you. Now, Pat asked me, how do you back in the numbers? It's very simple. You say, this month, we need to make $226,000 net profit. What are some of the things that we can do to contribute to this? This is an actual month that we had last month, right? Our number for the month was $226,000 in net profit that we had to meet to hit our growth goal and to cover all of our expenses and to be where I wanted to be. Because we measure everything in our business by the numbers. It's insane. It's sickening in a sense. That's why I got a full-time CFO who can do this for me now. But when you're starting off simplistic, what you just got to do is this. Like, say you're selling on Amazon. Say you're selling on Amazon. You'd say, anybody see that Amazon calculator I showed the other night? This is an example of backing into the numbers. Let me see if I can find it. I think Will might have redirected everything. So an example of backing into the numbers was you want to be an Amazon 12 products, $25 per product, 20 units a day per product with a 50% profit margin makes you $1 million in a single year. Now, I don't back into the numbers for a year, but backing into the numbers for a month, that makes a lot of sense to me. So at the time, I was saying to myself, damn exit pops. Aren't those things annoying? God, they make so much money, though. At the time, I was saying to myself, if I want to do $100,000 a month with me and poor old little Mary Jo, who's working herself to death with me, because that's the whole business that we had, just me and her, what do I got to do to make $100,000, and what's most likely to happen? 1,000 people paying $97 a month. Now, most of the market will not pay $97 a month, but a few people will, under the right circumstances, be happy to do such a thing. And so that's how we back into the numbers. Charlotte says, how often do you recommend emailing your list? And the answer to that, Charlotte, is as often as you have something nice to say. Oh, thanks. Yeah, no problem, Dave. As long as you have something nice to say, that you would be helpful to them. The way I say it, if I'm speaking to an only men audience, Charlotte, is this. I'll say to somebody who asks me that question, I'll say, who's your favorite female celebrity that you find the most attractive? And like somebody will say, Jessica Alba. And I said, if Jessica Alba wanted to send you naked pictures, how often would you like her to do that? To email you naked pictures of herself? And the answer is as much as she wants to, as much as possible. You could not get enough of that if you're that certain individual, right? By the way, I'm never politically correct. But the point remains is as long as you have something, yeah, you're not going to relate to that, Charlotte. Well, let me do it in another way, right? If your bank was willing to give you money for no reason, and every time they did that, they would email you, how often would you like them to email you? And the answer is as much as humanly possible. There's other situations, right? If you have kids, right, and they always told you how much they appreciate you, how often would you like to hear that? And the answer is as much as possible. So the short answer is if you want to email a list, if you always have something incredible and insightful and valuable to them, you should email them as much as you have something like that. If you don't have that very often, then what is it going to take for you to get that? Work backwards from that and then figure out the answer and go forward with it. First software we ever created was WP Twin. It was also the first time I partnered with Will. Here's how this happened. We are sitting in a private mastermind group at Dennis Becker's event, actually. And I'm bitching and I'm complaining about this product that I want to buy to clone WordPress sites. But every time I go to the website, it's closed during non-business hours. And I'm saying, how preposterous is this? How ridiculous is it? It's the internet. You don't have to close your website during non-business hours, and I couldn't buy this product. And I had identified at the time a serious gap in the market. There was no very easy way for a non-technical person to move their WordPress blog from one hosting account to another. This is in 2010, okay? At the time, it was very hard, if not impossible, to move your blog account from one host to another hosting unless you were technical. The only thing that had existed at the time that really did that was this damn product that I wanted to buy that was closed during non-business hours. So I'm sitting there venting and complaining and bitching and talking about it, and I very vividly, very specifically remember saying, if somebody creates a tool like that, it would make a tremendous amount of money. And I'm in a room with lots of very smart, very sharp marketers. And only one of them on the break comes out to me and says, do you really think that tool would make money if we created it? Or if you could get it created? And I said, you're damn right it would. I know for a fact. I go, if you can create that tool, I can sell the ever-living daylights out of it. And he goes, okay, I can do that. I'm like, and he walks away. And I'm sitting there thinking in my mind, yeah, right. You know how many damn times I hear somebody say that? Hey, Jason, if I created this, would you consider promoting it? Hell yeah, I would. Please do. And then you never hear from them again, right? I don't know. The money's made on the follow-up, not at the initial, right? But here is the rare individual occasionally that you run across. 5 weeks later, I have now forgotten this conversation even occurred. I've forgotten even being in the same room with this gentleman. He emails me one day and says, you know that script you wanted to create to clone it? It's done. I created it from start to finish. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah. And then he starts to explain. He starts to explain how he did it, like why he did it this way, why we didn't make it a WordPress plugin versus a PHP script. And I go, oh my God, this dude's awesome. I don't know who the hell he is, but he's cool. He gets it. All right? So we create this at this time. It was not Rapid Crush. Rapid Crush did not exist. It was a joint venture between our two companies to go out there and sell this tool. Now here's the insight. Here's a story nobody really knows about. The first webinar that we did to sell WP Twin, we only sold $5,000 worth of product on the webinar. It was a colossal flop. But then we went back to the drawing board, and we went back to the same audience 2 weeks later, sold it again, and we sold $100,000 worth of product. At the time, it was the single greatest webinar I'd ever done. We made one single adjustment. And again, it's all relative. $5,000 was a flop at the time because I could do an email promotion and make $30,000 to my list, or $20,000, right? So I'm like, oh my God, this one only made 5,000. I mean, don't feel sorry for me, right? But I knew that it could be a $100,000 winner, but we only did $5,000 in sales, right? Now here's the thing. There was one thing, really, at the end of the day, there was really only one thing that we did differently on the second webinar than the first webinar. So on the first webinar, when I'm pitching this thing, I'm explaining how you just upload this script and you push this button and clone it. But believe it or not, my audience of internet marketing customers did not understand FTP. They did not understand how FTP worked. They didn't understand what I was doing to FTP this thing and why that was important for this script and why that was functioning the way that it did and why we architected it that way. I made a stupid assumption without properly setting it up correctly so they could understand the bigger picture. So I lost them at step 1 when I went on to step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then I only sold the ones that got it or were willing to just believe me no matter even if they didn't understand it. I went back and I made that one adjustment in the pitch and it just closed the lights out. Just a little bit of setup went a long way. Very often the difference between closing the lights out on a promotion and just doing okay is one little adjustment. But never ever do I think I'm so damn good that I always know the answer. Most often I'm just guessing. And then I am already anticipating making adjustments on the follow-up. That's a huge lesson for you right there. So many people want to get it right when they just need to get it going. The other lesson is it's okay to be good at certain things and not be okay or not be good at other things. Like I never will, never have, never ever will be able to, in the life of me, create a software project on my own. But Will is amazing at that. And so we started Rapid Crush a couple months later together. The first serious money we ever made in Rapid Crush beyond, I mean, WP Twin was good money, right? But when we launched Product E-Class, we made some serious money. Several $100,000, I believe, in the first month that it was available. And the beautiful thing about this is this came as a result of us having to back into the numbers. We're sitting there saying this is where we want to be and this is where we want to grow in our business. We need to account for X number of dollars. What can we do? And I said, you know what, Will? Years ago, I used to run this thing called Product E-Class. I haven't done it in a while. We should do that again. Because if X number of people buy at $4.97 with this % of an operating net profit margin, we will be able to make the number. And so that's what we did. We backed right into the number. This was created based on a growth trajectory that we had previously mapped out that looked impossible to me. But we came up because at the time Will and I were very focused on growing as a software company. That was what we thought at the time Rapid Crush really was a software company. But it wasn't. It was a company that delivered solutions to internet marketers, and it just so happened solutions could be software could be one of those things, right? But when we sat down and said we really need to go to the next level here in terms of where we want to grow in our business, I said we got to add this thing to it. And we went out there and we did it. By the way, that Product E-Class still sells to this very day. We've now automated the pitch webinar for it. And that thing just closes. Not everything. I've never been able to run a webinar so consistently that makes money on autopilot like that one. Which is another insight, but that's for another day. Yeah, WP Twin. Charlotte bought WP Twin on 11/28/2013. Yeah, we started originally selling on 2011. We've had over 10,000 customers who've bought WP Twin. We have sold more units of WP Twin than any other product in the history of Rapid Crush Inc., which is funny because that was our first product. I was like, oh, they're all going to be like that, right? No. Never once created a software product that ever sold again in our life that good. And by the way, now it's like WP Twin doesn't ever make any sales anymore because before we introduced WP Twin, everybody who thought about the concept sold it as backup. And I thought, you know what, backing up a blog is so boring. I'm going to show people how to make money. Before me, nobody was using the word clone. Everybody was using the word backup. And I was the first person to ever go out there and say, this is how you can make money cloning WordPress sites, not backing them up, cloning them. And we went out there, we owned the market, and now there's 6 million knockoffs. who came in second after that once they saw the units we were moving. That's okay. By that point, we've already captured the market, so they can have some too. Moving on. This was a gigantic milestone. This really changed how I viewed the market and what's possible, given the right amount of focus, operations, and a little bit of specialty expertise. A gigantic milestone in our business was we broke the record in 2014 of April for most revenue referred by an affiliate during a product launch on all the internet for internet marketing products or information products in general. The previous record was held by John Reese, where he referred $2.1 million in sales, gross sales, to a product during an affiliate promotion. And we were able to, during Amazing Selling Machine of this was ASM 3. So in ASM 2, we were the top affiliate, but we sold 350 units. In ASM 3, we went from 350 units to over 1,300 units sold during a promotion of 8 days. So this was April of last year. And so I don't know exactly what the number is, but if you take 1,300 times 3,500, what does that equal exactly? Okay, let me just pull this up. Okay, 1,300 times, what, 3,500? Yeah, $4.5 million in referred sales. $4.5 million in referred sales. The previous record was $2.1 million as far as anybody knew in referred sales during an affiliate launch. Not only did we break the record, but we absolutely shattered it. Before we did this, nobody thought anything like this was even possible. And we more than doubled second place. And it actually, if you add second, third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth, and seventh, and eighth, and ninth together, we had more sales combined than they do. Now, it's funny because John Rhodes, who got third there, he now works for us, right? It's an incredible journey, an incredible experience. But here's a question for you. After this launch was done, and a lot of people watched this launch, guess how many people, other marketers, contacted me and said, how did you do that? And Jason, wow, that's amazing, incredible. Can I hire you to do something like that for me? Or any of that kind of stuff. Guess how many people contacted me, other marketers, other internet marketers, and asked me about that? How were you able to pull that off? Was it like 100 of them? 50 of them? 20 of them? 3. It was 3 of them. 3 of them! And I mean, I'm a pretty open guy. I think you would agree with me that as far as marketers go, I'm pretty straight. Even when I'm selling you, I'm pretty straight. Don't do a lot of bells and whistles, don't do a lot of smoke and mirrors. I'm a pretty open book, but yeah, 3 people asked me. Just blows my mind. Asking often gets you very far in this business and in life. Perpetual constant improvements of marketing and operations to answer your question, Charlotte. You said, how did you do this? There was a lot of techniques that we used during this launch that people thought were highly innovative, but every single one of those techniques we had used previously in other promotions. So anybody ever see us use those exit pops to Skype groups? So you go to the offer, but you say no. We say, hey, wait, let's talk about it. Click this button, and we'll automatically add you in our Skype group. Very powerful selling technique. We used that very well in ASM 3, but we had already used that prior to ASM 3 during a promotion in the past. I'll give you another example. Dedicated affiliate landing page. Before us, not a single person who promoted ASM created their own landing page, their own sales page, their own sales webinar. Everybody promoted the same thing. Everybody as an affiliate promoted the vendor sales page, and the vendor's sales video, and the vendor's pitch. We were the first ones, and at the time we were the only ones, before even ASM 3, to create a dedicated self-hosted sales page for a launch like that. Nobody at that time had ever done a product launch over $2,000 where the affiliate had created their own dedicated sales page that bypassed the vendor sales page and went direct to the order form. But again, that wasn't the first time we did that. I had done that with previous launches as well. It's amazing how little the market pays attention in terms of your peers and other internet marketers that exist out there. And then again, do they generalize? Did they do this in other promotions after ASM or previous to ASM? No, they did it for that one thing because they saw us do it for that one thing. But again, the answer to this, the insight here is perpetual constant improvements of marketing and operations. We continually improved upon these things with prior launches. So when the time came when there was the perfect offer that made the perfect sense in the perfect timing, it doesn't happen often, but it happens occasionally, boy, things can go incredibly well. Now, those same techniques don't work necessarily as well in other promotions, and here's why. Because the amount of belief that I have related to that opportunity is so incredibly and so palatable, and you can just hear it and see it when I'm speaking on it. That trumps technique any day of the week. So other people just treat it as another promotion. But for that particular thing, we treat it more than just another promotion. And we do things that transcend the norm on what we do in our business. So it's very powerful. Now here's the funny thing too. There's also this thing called the tipping point or the boiling point. Most of our audience who bought ASM3 had seen me sell ASM2 and they seen me sell ASM1. So why did they wait 18 months before they bought ASM3? Because they didn't believe me the first 2 times, or the timing wasn't right. But usually it was because they thought I was just making claims, right? But then they saw each time I came back to them what I said in the past I did, and then I did other stuff on top of that. So I was very consistent with my action. So the first time they didn't necessarily believe me, but then the second time they thought, well, he did it once, but he won't do it again. By the third time they thought, damn, this guy means business. And they hit that was that perfect storm where everything aligned and they tipped off. Now, nobody asked us how we did it. No other people thought, well, that was fantastic. That was great, Jason. Maybe I should pay you some money to do that kind of stuff for me, optimize my marketing campaigns. I didn't care. I don't do this for the accolades. We do this for the money. Yeah, and the bonus absolutely helped, Rick. You're absolutely right. The bonus, though, is a byproduct of everything else. The bonus is if I understand that customers want to buy this and what are their needs and what are their desires and what would they really love to have to help them make the best decision, then you work backwards from that. And then, of course, continually improving it over time. The bonuses that we had in ASM1, I said, this is what's going to happen with these bonuses in the next 6 months. And not everybody believed me. But then 6 months later, I came back to my customers and said, remember this bonus I told you about? This is what has happened to it since then. So we worked on the bonuses for 6 months. Once we saw opportunity, we doubled down on it very hard, and we set the record. But then we broke the record in October of 2014 for ASM, right? For most revenue referred by an affiliate during a product launch. And so we made over $2 million in net commissions, and we referred over $5 million in gross sales, and it was great because we beat Rich Dad. We beat a famous celebrity with a 10 million person email list who everybody thought was going to come in and kick our ass, right? Not that I really care about these results, by the way. I don't care about winning or losing in some dumb contest. And really, it's like, what I care about is a lot more than that, and I hope you realize that. But the point of it is, it's nice. It's nice to wear the crown, right? But we set the record yet again. Now, this time, a couple people have asked me, and they were kind of interested in it. And they were very intrigued because we proved that it wasn't a fluke, and we proved that we improved upon it even from last time in October of 2014. And what I discovered is this: in your business, momentum is a wonderful thing. Once you pick up on something, it's so much better to back it than it is to try to add a new thing to it. Okay? Does that make sense? Once you stumble upon an opportunity that works really well, you go all in on it. Because you have the data, you have the results, you see the value of it, and now you say, instead of being just an inch taller than everybody else in the market, what if I was a foot taller? Not all opportunities are equal, nor they should be treated as such. I could literally not work for the rest of the year, and I will make over net $1 million this year. If I stop working now, probably close to $2 million net profit, AGI, adjusted gross income, without doing any more work for the rest of the year, because I understand opportunity cost. And I would instead like to focus, we worked 16-hour days for the last 8 days straight, actually the last 10 days straight, 160 hours I put in the last 10 days. But the idea is, if I stop for the rest of the year, which obviously I won't, but if I did, I've now made more money than 99.9% of internet marketers because we realize opportunity costs and we focus and be the best at this one thing eventually. You have to find that one thing that you're going to be the best at. You might not have it yet, and you might be trying multiple different things to uncover that, but as soon as you see potential for something, start inching forward to it even closer. And maybe introduce a little bit of what? Controlled chaos. And, get a little uncomfortable so you can grow and realize that you don't know everything and make adjustments along the way, just as we did with WP Twin. You see where this is all going? All of these things lead up to the final thing. You may or may not notice this, but we just, again, broke the record yesterday. Actually, this morning, 2 o'clock this morning, when the car closed, we broke the record again for promotion as an affiliate in a launch time. And we referred not quite $10 million, $9.7 million in sales of ASM in an 8-day period of time. Most launches don't even do $10 million. But to have one single affiliate refer $10 million in sales has never been seen before. Before us, the record was 2.1. We went to 5. Then we went to 6. Then we went to 9. It's incredible, right? And it feels surreal for me to share this with you, but you know me. I'm an open book. This is just the way that it is. The conclusion on this is once you hit on something that perfectly aligns with your strengths, back it and double down on it with all your might. Now here's the interesting thing. By ASM 5, people finally were able to accept, other partners and other people were able to accept that maybe we actually did have something interesting and powerful and intriguing going on here. And then they went in with us, and they partnered with us, and they backed us instead of competing against us, right? But that took me a while. It took me over a year to put that in place. That long-term focus of perpetual constant improvement, of being able to not just be an inch taller than everybody else in your market, but to be a foot taller, that's the conclusion. And you know what? That's wonderful in business. It's also wonderful in life. While this was all going on, from when I started my business to here I am before you today, here's some of the things that have happened in my life. A thing I very rarely talk about, but I think about constantly, is I had a 9-year-old brother that died of cancer in 2009, and I was in the room with him the day he passed away, holding his hand. And it's tough, in a sense. Well, it is tough in a lot of senses. In some ways, it's not so tough, and I'll explain that to you here very quickly. Before that, though, just understand this. While I'm building my business, I'm 2 years into my business, my brother gets cancer, and within 8 months he dies, and he's 9 years old. And I'm 25, 26 at the time, 27. That was tough, devastating. But you know what? You know what got me through it, and you know what made me a better person and allowed me to do some of the wonderful things that are just historical in terms of internet marketing, like literally making history type of stuff, right? Is I remember I said, how can I cope? How can I deal with such a tragedy such as this? And I didn't know the answer. I was broken. I hurt physically. And I didn't know how I was going to pick up the pieces and moved on after this happened. And then something hit me, and I said to myself, I want to do great things in His name. Not in His name by like always putting Him out there in front of people, right? But I said, if I can, in action, do things that would encompass His Spirit with my zest for life and my approach, to really go out there and be bold, because Ryan was bold, right? And to really, Ryan was strong. Ryan, as a 9-year-old kid, knowing he was about to die, was strong enough to be there for my mother, to not be scared for her, to be strong for her, so that way it would ease her pain and my pain. That's the kind of kid he was, right? And for me to say, how can I be like him? How can I embody his spirit? So that way he always feels like he's a part of me, right? And that is very powerful. And I only share that story during certain very, very, very specific times, such as the one here today, where I can put into context incredibly powerful things, just like what I shared with you. And I think this is incredibly powerful, so it's appropriate to mention. I don't mention it very often. But that was something in my personal life that I took that could have devastated and ruined me. And I figured out a way to actually use it in a way that inspires me. It makes me understand it. I don't understand life really, but I understand there's certain things you can always do to where no matter what happens to you, you can find a way to thrive. Not just survive, but thrive, right? I had 2 children. I lost a brother, and I gained 2 children during this time. I got married, and I did it out of order. I'm a contrarian to the core, right? But these are the things that applied in business to me that have been very successful to do some phenomenal things and then be able to share them here with you today. Most people, when they break a record like we just broke, and I mean we didn't just break it, we shattered it. They would take time off. They wouldn't you know, what would they do? What are we doing? We're here with you today. I'm here with you right now as a customer, giving you value, hopefully. I hope I'm giving you value at least. I'm trying my best. As a way to show you what is possible for you. And hopefully my talk today, as we wrap it up here, brings home this final point. Where I'm at now and where I was when I first started, I will tell you one thing. I have been just as happy and excited and thrilled when I first started this journey of making money online. Before there was ever even 6 and 6 or Rapid Crush, all the way up to today, where the milestone of the 100th session of Rapid Crush of 6 and 6 combines with a record that'll probably, I don't know if I'll ever match it or if anybody will ever match it in the next 5 to 10 years, right? But the biggest insight of all is this: find a way to make the journey as pleasurable as the destination. Whatever you're doing to attempt to be bold and to be great at and to affect a sphere of influence over a certain market segment, find a way that as you're going about doing it, it feels just as good while you're doing it, even during the struggle, as it does when you achieve it. If you can do that, then it doesn't really matter exactly what incredible things you'll accomplish, because your life will be incredible. That's what I have for you today. Thank you for certain stuff that you can do to make this type of impact on people individually, then in groups, and then who knows what is absolutely possible. And I don't even know what's possible yet for me. So imagine what is possible for you, what you have not tapped into yet, but will tap into here, and then back beyond that. And hopefully some of the lessons I share with you here today can help you tap into that limitless potential that we all have to do incredible things and lead an incredible life. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate every one of you.